Magic the Gathering celebrated its 20th anniversary this summer, and for nearly all of it, my next guest has been a big part of it. Before joining Wizards of the Coast, he was a Pro Tour regular with 2 Pro Tour top 8s and was a part of the legendary team CMU. He is the former editor of MagicTheGathering.com. He made his debut as a Magic designer way back in 5th Dawn, and today he is the director of Magic Research and Development. I am, of course, talking about Mr. Aaron Forsythe. Aaron, thank you for sitting down with me.
Thank you. You did your homework.
I did. I try to prepare when I have nice guests.
All right.
So these days, you're, of course, the director of Magic R&D, which means you're the big boss in charge of creating Magic sets and cards and environments. For the folks at home who may not be aware, what responsibilities does your job specifically entail?
Well, it's a lot of meetings. Unfortunately, it's not a lot of playing Magic anymore.
Sure.
I've gotten promoted past where I get to have fun at my job. I'm in charge of all the designers, which is Mark Rosewater and those guys, the developers, including Eric Lauer and Dave Humphreys and their team, the creative team, which does all the illustrations, names and flavor text and story writing, editors, which makes sure the game works right and rules and all that, and then our digital team that does Duels of the Planeswalkers, game design, and Magic Online.
That's a lot of responsibility, yes.
So basically I'm just hearing what they have to say, making sure everyone's on the same page, steering them in the right direction if, they're not sure what to do. But for the most part, it's a super talented bunch.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm just there to kind of settle disagreements.
Head coach,
yeah,
really?
Mostly.
Cool.
They're the players, I'm the coach, and I'll let them do their thing as much as possible.
Absolutely. Well, these days, Magic is more popular than ever. It's so popular, in fact, that there are people, like myself, it's my entire job in this game.
Sure.
That you are in charge of creating, really. So how, has the scope of how big Magic has gotten ever get to you?
Yeah, in a good way. I have a reminder of it in that when I first took over the department, there must have been 18 people, and now it's got to be close to 40.
Sure.
So I know, I was like, all these people have jobs because of this game and what we're doing, and every time I talk to a guy who owns a store or runs tournaments, and you guys for sure, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of people that are counting on us to deliver the goods every single time. And so we're very aware of that, and we think about that all the time, from the players on up, to ourselves. We want to make sure that we get to keep our jobs and everything keeps going swimmingly with the game. And so, yeah, it's great to see it keep growing and growing and growing. It feels really good.
Well, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being good at your job.
Well,
I'm sure that everybody here is really appreciative of how good you are.
It has been a great run. I know I'm not responsible for all the growth in Magic, but it does feel good to be, front and center as it's been happening.
Yeah, at least a little bit of credit.
A little bit. I'll take a little bit of credit.
So now that's enough administrative stuff. On to Theros. That's the important business at hand. We are here at the Pro Tour Theros. We have the nice Theros backdrop here. Although you're not on the official list of designers and developers, you obviously are hugely involved in the process. You step in and out at times, but you're there every day, and you have your finger in a lot of pies, so to speak. So how much interaction do you have on Theros design and development on a day-to-day basis, or how much did you have?
Not a whole lot. I was only tactical in a couple minor spots. I would just review the file a lot, ask a lot of questions, and say, I don't think this is delivering what you guys think it is. Let's try to rework that a little bit. I'd follow up on what's going on in the FFL, make sure standard's in a good spot. But like I said, I got a couple of great teams working on this. I didn't have to do a lot. I worked on some of the frame design, the enchantment creature, how they look different from everything else. And then I worked on a mini team that was based on the gods and their weapons. But other than that, I did very little tactical work, just a lot of reviews, check-ins, thumbs up, thumbs down kind of stuff.
Well, speaking of the enchantment creatures and enchantment artifacts, this Enchanted Evening set, really, of permanents with enchantment in addition to other types, like you mentioned, the gods and the weapons. They're a major theme in Theros. How was the decision made right at the beginning of Theros design to make enchantments a major theme in this set?
So that's interesting. That decision was made well before Theros started design. There was about 4 of us in a room, myself and Mark Rosewater included, trying to plan out the next 4 or 5 years worth of sets. We knew we wanted to do Innistrad, and then we had the Return to Ravnica. Those were all fleshed out, and we knew what we wanted to do the year after Theros, and we kind of knew what we wanted to do the year after that. We couldn't figure out what we wanted this year to be. So we had a list of all the stuff we wanted to accomplish. We knew we wanted to do a set with a lot of enchantments in it, because we haven't done one of those since Urza's saga. We had a list of themes we liked, and Greek mythology kept coming up. And so I was just like, all right, we're going to do a Greek mythology theme that uses a lot of enchantments. Go.
There you go.
And Mark was like, I don't know if that's a thing. But then a week later he came back. He's like, I got it. It's a thing. We're going to do it. Let's go. But we're doing it.
Awesome.
So it turned out great. It just turned out great.
Yeah, it's absolutely phenomenal. I don't know if you want to just tell us what's coming in the next 2 years.
No.
Okay, just thought I'd ask. Just in case we could get the exclusive 2 years ahead of time.
I said I liked keeping my job. And
yeah, exactly. That's true. Fair enough. So M14 had a very noticeable aura sub-theme with, for example, a Johnny's Chosen, Quag Sickness, Oromancer, things like that, which melds nicely with Theros.
Blightcaster. And
Blightcaster and a bunch of other stuff like that. And, of course, Theros has things like the Bestow creatures.
Yep.
You're in charge of the big picture,
yep.
right? So how the different sets meld, they intermix with each other, and that includes the base set. So I imagine you had a lot to do with that intermingling.
Yeah, it's nice that we have enough people working on the product now that we can plan things out, pretty far in advance. We're not always right at the deadline. Let's work on the next project. So when we made this decision of how Theros was going to look, we started putting enchantment things into previous sets. Even Return to Ravnica has, ethereal armor and a couple other cards that refer to enchantments, because we knew this was going to come up and we wanted to have stuff already in place so that when the enchantments first came out, there were decks you could build right with the cards you already had, that we didn't have to provide every single interaction within Theros
and people
itself.
could rediscover things like Sphere of Safety.
Right, Sphere of Safety, that's a great example. Yeah, so we're hoping to do this more and more often, and make sure that when a new set comes out, that the pieces are already in place for that set to have an impact.
Is it difficult to do that without tipping your hand too much to keep what you think is going to be a secret? I know that a lot of people predicted that Theros would be enchantment themed.
I don't think it's bad. I think people love to speculate and they want to get involved and think really hard and try to figure out what we're up to. And I think there's a few dead ends and a few kind of red herrings in sets as to what's going to be mattering a year from now. But I think in general, I like that there are clues that if you're paying enough attention and you know how we think, that you can start to predict what we're doing. I don't think it doesn't give away too much. Like the fact that enchantments are going to matter is fine. Yeah. I still believe the Greek mythology thing was something that people didn't see coming, and it was a big hit, and we got all the bang out of it.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's a big hit, and I love it. It's a ton of fun, and particularly the gods and the weapons. And I hear a little bird told me that you are not perhaps individually responsible, but largely responsible for Bow of Nylea.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about how Bow of Nylea came about, its creation, and how it ended up in its current form.
The pundits like to pick on that one.
It's
got tons of abilities and all these words.
I like to look at it like it's a planeswalker.
And they say, you guys said you were going to put this many words on cards, and you're liars, and you're bad game designers. I don't mind every so often we have a card that's a little crazy. The whole set's not too crazy. There's once in a while you throw a bunch of words on a card. It was a noble attempt at a flavorful card. So we knew each god wanted to have a weapon. We tried them as some sort of equipment early on in design, but that didn't work out. So we ended up making these 5 enchantment artifacts. Now, they're enchantments just because we want to show that they are affiliated with the gods, and in the story, enchantments are kind of the favor of the gods. So their weapons, their enchantments, their weapons are enchantments. So Eric Lauer, who's leading this mini team that I was on, said, let's give them all a static ability that kind of represents the enchantment part, and then it activated a tap ability that represents the artifact part. So we knew they all had to be weapons, but green doesn't do weapons particularly well. It doesn't kill things. When you think of a bow, it's like, well, that should just tap to deal damage.
Right.
It's like, well, that's not green. So we started reading the story and what the flavor guys came up with about Nylea and what she represents, and she's the goddess of the hunt, and her quiver contains 4 arrows that represent the 4 seasons. And so I said, okay, let's see if we can pull that off on a card. So if you look at it, each ability goes, 1 counter, 2 damage, 3 life, and 4 cards. So 1 through 4, and then there's 4 abilities that kind of loosely, they change during
translate
but loosely translate to the seasons. Like putting a counter on is growth, and the winter is killing flyers, and there's a harvest with gaining life and things like that. So it's loose, but once you hear the story and you understand it, I think it pays off pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a wonderful card. I've played with it in draft several times. It's
I've seen a couple copies out on the floor and it's constructed as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of my favorite. Like I said, I like to think of it a lot more like a planeswalker. It just has so much that it can do.
Right. The gods also have a kind of a planeswalker vibe to them. That they show up and they have this presence on the battlefield. and like I remember playing against the gods in the FFL and thinking like I should be able to attack those, just like I can attack planeswalkers. They're annoying me and I want to kill them, but they're harder to get rid of than planeswalkers.
Absolutely. You can't attack a god.
Right, that's right.
For gosh sakes. But
so God can attack you.
That's true. That's so deep. But so, were there any other cards in Theros that you had a specific hand in designing and development?
Like I said, most of it was on the gods and the weapons. I'm proud of the Hammer of Perforos. Once we talked long and hard with the creative team about, look, the red god should be the god of war. That's what everyone's going to want. And they're like, no, we're saving that for later. The red god's going to be the god of the forge. I'm like, oh man, I don't know how to do forge. Like, we just want to deal damage. But the hammering your mountains into these artifact creatures was kind of a cool solution, and the card plays really well.
Yep, absolutely.
It's another one I'm seeing a lot of out on the floor.
Yeah, that one might be the most powerful individual card by itself, because I remember, of course, playing with Fires of Yavimaya, and this one is Fires with even more upside.
Right.
Which
great
is
against control decks, and it's a cool card.
Turns every top deck land into something you can use rather than just rats, another land, and it's all the weapons are fabulous, obviously, but the hammer was really exciting for me when I first saw it.
And I wanted to say that even though I didn't work on a lot of the cards, stuff like the Triad of Fates and the Firebringer Prometheus Giant,
Titan of Eternal
Fire. The way that the team captured some of these very Greek stories on Magic cards, was no small feat in the end. I was egging them on all the way, and they turned out awesome. So,
and I certainly appreciate all the little references and things like Chain to the Rocks, and a Crow and Horse, and it's
in the underworld.
Absolutely, some great flavor in this set.
And they play well. That's
what
makes me happy.
We didn't just they tell a story.
We didn't just write the words on them and say that's good enough. Like, we tested them and tweaked them and got them to where you get to tell the story in the game because you're actually playing with it as opposed to just reading it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're here at the Pro Tour. The Pro Tour is a huge deal, especially in the fall. The fall set Pro Tour, right after a bunch of cards leave, a bunch of new cards come in. It's a really big deal, especially for Team SCG, of course. They spent a long time preparing. Right. All the players in this tournament spent a long time preparing. What are you most excited to see happen at this Pro Tour?
Well, if you know, this was the first one in a couple years we've done where it is standard right after the rotation. It's been modern.
Yeah.
We moved the schedule around because we realized, look, the standard rotation is kind of the big time we want to showcase what the new set is adding to the mix. So I'm excited just that when I walk out there, I'm not just seeing the return to Ravnica block constructed decks with Theros dual lands thrown in there. There's real innovation, real stuff that we had hoped when we were putting the set together was going to show up. All these different god decks, and there's different black-white decks, and I can't wait to see what the top 8 looks like. Feels like a whole new world out there. Just all the different devotion colors and all the mechanics are showing up. It's tremendous.
Yeah, we've already seen several of the mechanics showing up. Particularly devotion has shown up in force at this Pro Tour so far. So that's got to be a real boon.
Yeah, I think
for you guys.
Nykthos. Well, besides the gods, the land Nykthos is a huge deal.
Fanatic of Mogus.
We haven't made a card like Nykthos in a long time. Yeah. Where you can get 10, 12 man off it if your board's set up right. I mean, you do have to commit, and your stuff can all get blown up, but it's kind of a fun. Let me show you all my stuff, and let's do this kind of format.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun. So, as I mentioned in the intro, you were a member of Team CMU, which was really one of the first. It was arguably the first Magic Super Team. Really, it was one of, if not the first. And that was one of the forerunners of today's super teams, like TeamStarCityGames.com. What do you think about the recent proliferation of these big teams coming together to work for Pro Tours?
I think it's awesome. Like, you need every edge you can get. And with Magic Online out there and the proliferation of information on the internet and all the tournaments that you guys and other people are running, that people are getting better and better at Magic as a whole. Just kind of the masses are better and better. And so when you have to come to a tournament like this, where you need every edge you can get, you want to be working with the best players, and it's great when they can get sponsored by other retailers and things like that to kind of make the players' lives easier, and then they get to put on a great show. They come up with the best decks, and it's great.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm certainly grateful for it because it means I get to come to the Pro Tour and not have to play.
It's cool, isn't it?
Isn't it great being at a Pro Tour and not worry about losing?
That's right.
There you go. So, Aaron, this has been a real treat. Thank you so much for stepping in and talking to me. Aaron Forsythe, Director of Magic the Gathering Research and Development. I'm Reuben Bresler, and stay tuned here on TeamStarCityGames.com for more interviews, deck techs, and more with myself and Cedric Phillips from Pro Tour Theros in Dublin, Ireland. We'll see you then.